James's knuckles were white as he maneuvered through Linea's unstable atmosphere while holding the controls of his single-pilot craft. His view was obstructed by the planet's swirling purple clouds, while sirens sizzling throughout the cockpit warned of danger. He mumbled, struggling with the staff. "Come on, baby. Just a little further." An aggressive James's head hit the headrest as a sudden jolt shook the ship. As the vehicle lost control and fell into the surface below, he tasted blood. He spoke out into his communicator. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Agent James Hawthorne. My ship is going down on linear coordinates." The communication was lost as the spacecraft collided with the planet's surface. All went dark. James felt discomfort as soon as he recovered consciousness. His ribs were pierced by every breath, and his head throbbed. He blinked, attempting to concentrate his hazy vision. Surrounded by lush purple flora, the twisted wreckage of his ship strewn over a little opening. James froze, his eyes adjusting to the low light coming through the thick canopy. He wasn't by himself. At the edge of the clearing, a group of women observed him with interest. However, these women were not like any he had ever seen. They possessed unearthly grace in their movements, and their skin had a rich, glittering blue color. Among them, one moved forward. With her beautiful hair the color of stars and her piercing silver eyes, she was towering and statuesque. Her voice was forceful but melodic when she spoke. "Traveler, welcome to Linea. I am Azora, the Cerulean Sisterhood's chief." James wiped at the ache in his ribs as he tried to sit up. With a raspy voice, he managed to say, "I'm James." "My ship. There was an accident." A knowing smile played at Azora's lips. "James, there aren't any mishaps on Linea. The planet delivered you are with us for a purpose." James only hesitated for a moment before accepting her hand. Against his skin, hers felt smooth and chilly. "Please come," Azora beckoned. "We will tend to your wounds and show you the wonders of our world." As they guided him through the deep jungle, James's thoughts were racing. This was not the intended course of his assignment, not to make friends with the people, but to look into the disappearance of the last mission. But perhaps this was his opportunity to obtain intelligence. A clearing appeared out of the bush, showing an amazing view. Before them, a city of crystalline spires rose, gleaming in the violet light. The buildings were joined by walkways made of entwined vines, and James could make out more of the women with blue skin moving elegantly between them. "Welcome to our home," Azora stated with a proud tone. James's gaze expanded. "It's amazing," he exhaled, losing himself in the momentary wonder of such otherworldly beauty and forgetting his goal. He followed Azora to a crystal spire. There was an inner glow that appeared to pulse through the walls. James was led to a plush bed covered in what appeared to be live moss. "Right moment," Azora uttered. "When you've recovered, we'll show you the true wonders of Linea." James wanted to object and inquire, but he was too tired. He fell into the moss and was again swallowed by darkness. The sound of sweet singing roused him up. A young lady was seated next to her blue complexion, little paler than Azora's on his bed. She clutched a tiny vial with a brilliant purple liquid inside of it. She murmured, her voice melodic and lilting. "You're awake." "My name is Lyra. I'm to take care of you," Azora asked. James was taken aback to see the soreness in his ribs had relaxed. With a gesture at the vial, he questioned, "What is that?" Lyra had glistening eyes. "This sums up Linea in its purest form. We refer to it as Nectar. It possesses extraordinary qualities." A delightful, enticing scent wafted throughout the room as she unscrewed the container. James experienced a dizzy feeling in his head. "I'm not." He started to say, "Think." But Lyra put a finger to his lips. She said, "Trust me." Her face inches from his. "Just a taste." She brought the vial to James's lips before he could raise any more objections. It was the coolest, sweetest beverage he had ever tasted. When it slid, warmth blossomed in his chest and extended throughout his body, trailing down his throat. James could hear Lyra's heartbeat and smell the exotic flowers blooming outside as the colors appeared to intensify and the crystal walls surged with brilliant energy. He gasped, What is this?" Lyra's chuckle resembled tinkling. "Rings. James, this is life. Life at its most basic, simplified." Her lips grazed his ear as she leaned in close. "And there's so much more to experience." James's training begged him to back off and concentrate on his goal, but the nectar hummed in his veins, arousing passions he had no idea existed. Grasping his hand, Lyra helped him stand up. She said, "Come on. Azora is waiting." As she guided him down the twisting hallways of crystal, James was astounded by how alive and steady he felt. His wounds appeared to have fully healed after consuming the nectar. They appeared on a broad platform with a view of the forest. Standing at its edge, Azora's silver hair billowed in the wind. As they got closer, she turned, an inner light shining in her eyes. "James," she whispered, "I trust you're feeling better." He nodded, searching for anything to say. The honey intensified each feeling, making it difficult to concentrate. "Well," Azora replied. She pointed at the view in front of them. "What do you see?" James peered out at the strange terrain. With the exception of glistening crystal spires, the purple vegetation extended as far as the eye could see. A range of mountains shimmered in the distance, as if they were mirages. "I see beauty," he stated. "Unlike anything on E? Arth." Azora grinned more broadly. "And power," she continued. "James, Linnea is still alive. Its lifeblood is the honey, and we are its custodians." Her silver eyes were staring into his as she fully turned to face him. "Why do you actually come here, James?" Through the nectar's cloud, the question came through. James stiffened, his hand automatically going to the hidden gun at his hip. Azora chuckled, the sound both lovely and menacing. "Oh, don't be alarmed. We don't dispute with your guys. We really greeted the final group that arrived here and welcomed with open arms." James's gaze grew strained. "The missing expedition? What happened to them?" "They're here," Azora murmured, "living among us, experiencing the fullness of life that only Linnea can offer." She moved in closer, her aroma overpowering him. "James, you could go with them. Get rid of the limitations of your surroundings and welcome actual independence." James's thoughts raced. This was his chance to finish the task, to find out what was really going on, but the nectar made his judgment hazy and the offer irresistible. He managed to say, I need time to think." Azora seemed unsurprised as she nodded. "Obviously, Lyra will lead you to your accommodations. Take a nap and discover our city. We can discuss more when you're ready." James noticed another woman observing from the shadows as Lyra escorted him away. Her expression was reserved, almost rebellious, in contrast to the others. He inquired of Lyra, "Who's that?" She passed her by. Shoulder. "That's Carrie, I see. Please ignore her. She's not the same." James found himself drawn to something in Lyra's tone. He couldn't get rid of the thought that Carrie might hold the key to solving Linnea's secrets while they were leaving. James paced agitatedly in his large crystal chamber that overlooked the bright jungle. He was still coherent, but his want for more nectar was growing. He had to get serious about his purpose, the lost expedition, and Linnea's true nature. He needed to find it all. However, each time he closed his eyes, he was met with Lyra's soothing touch and Azora's captivating gaze. He had no idea that the nectar had the power it did, and its grip on him was just getting stronger. A gentle tap on the door pulled him out of his reverie. Ever prepared for anything, James stiffened. "Come in." He made a call. He saw Carrie, the woman he'd seen earlier when the door opened. She had complex silver patterns all over her blue skin up close, and her violet eyes were watching him warily. "You're the outsider," she uttered in a quiet tone. That wasn't a query. James gave a nod. "And it's you who doesn't fairly well at this place?" Carrie's face flashed a shadow of a smile. "Shrewd. Perhaps there is yet hope for you." She took a quick peek behind her before entering the space and shutting the door. She urged, "Listen carefully," in an urgent tone. "Here, nothing is as it seems. The Sisterhood and the Nectar are both a part of something greater." James began to feel anxious. He had been waiting for this. "Tell me more." His and Carrie's eyes met. "I am unable to. Not in this place. When the third moon rises, come see me at the edge of the crystal forest. Don't drink, and come by yourself, not a single more nectar." Like a shadow, she disappeared from the room before James could reply. He just stood there, thinking all over. This was his opportunity to find the truth and finish his duty. However, while the effects of the nectar persisted in his bloodstream, a perilous aspect questioned whether he truly desired to leave this paradise. Linnea was enveloped in darkness as James gazed out at the foreign terrain. The 3 moons hung in the sky like priceless pearls, and the forest blazed with bioluminescent life. He needed to decide whether to go with Carrie into the either become lost in the seductive embrace of the Cerulean Sisterhood or the unknown. James took a long breath and decided. Slipping from his chambers, he made his way through the crystal halls in silence. Reaching the city's outskirts, he took one more look back at the shimmering spires. Then, arming himself with steel, he dove into the luminous jungle, headed for whatever mysteries lay within Linnea's heart. James felt his heart race as he made his way through the foliage into the bioluminescent forest, which buzzed with alien life. Every chirp and rustling made him tense. He was almost completely devoid of the nectar's effects, and he found it difficult to ignore the gnawing emptiness in his stomach. A glimpse of his attention was drawn to a movement as Carrie appeared out of the shadows, her silver insignia shining subtly in the gloom. She responded, "You came," with a tone of relief in her voice. "I wasn't sure you would." James looked closely at her face, trying to find any hint of dishonesty. Firmly, "I want answers," he declared. "What's actually happening?" "In this place?" Carrie gave him a quick look over her shoulder before guiding him further into the forest. Whispering, "The nectar isn't just a drug," she said. "It's alive sentient, and it's using us." James's thoughts raced. Making use of you? How? When they came to a little clearing, Carrie looked up at him. "Hosts are required by nectar to replicate. It modifies our biochemistry, creating a need for it. We produce more when we consume more." James felt a shiver run down his spine as the implications clicked. "And the missing expedition?" Carrie's eyes went black. "They remain here. But they are no longer the same people. The nectar has fully taken control." Before James could reply, eerie tunes and rhythmic drumming could be heard echoing across the jungle. "The midnight ritual," Carrie growled. "We have to go back before they notice we're missing." They slipped into the shadows at the border of the Crystal City and rushed back towards it. Upon approaching the city, Carrie took James by the arm. She cautioned, "Be careful. Azora believes you're not who you appear to be. Keep your wits about you." She then vanished back into the shadows, leaving James to deal with the alluring peril of the Cerulean Sisterhood by himself. There was music and movement in the Crystal City's center square. Several blue-skinned women shimmered with perspiration and nectar stains as they danced in elaborate patterns. Azora led the ritual from the center, her silver hair flowing like liquid stars. James fell, with a thumping heart out into the throng. He sensed the call of the incense, which was heavy with nectar-laced incense and promised ecstasy and oblivion. Azora met his gaze, her lips curving into a sly smile. She whispered, "James," her voice rising over the melody. "Come, join us." He moved, moving forward, his gut telling him to flee, but he had a task to finish and mysteries to solve. He was obliged to comply. Azora placed a glass of sparkling nectar inside a crystal that she shoved into his palm. "It says, 'Drink,'" she ordered. "Let Linnea embrace you fully." James paused for a brief moment before bringing the glass to his mouth. The nectar ignited every nerve ending in his body, striking like lightning. The boundaries of his body seemed to disappear, noises transformed into music, and colors became more intense. He started to move with the dancers, getting swept up in the excitement and rhythm. He was being led through the ritual's steps by Azora's hands. He was overcome with euphoria and found it difficult to recall why he was in this place and why the sensation he was experiencing was significant. Her touch had a shocking effect on him. He could see Carrie through the blur. Observing from the plaza's edge, her countenance a mixture of fear and longing. The image grounded him and made him aware of the danger that this utopia might conceal. James was drawn near by Azora as the ceremony approached its climax. "You're restraining you, self," she muttered, her lips barely meeting his auditory nerve. "Release. Give yourselves entirely to Linnea." James wavered on the verge of giving up for a little minute. It would be so simple to let go and become lost in this world's beauty and nectar. However, his objective and the lost expedition remain in his memories. Slice through the mist. I can't," he exhaled and withdrew. "I'm not ready." Azora's face flashed with mistrust as her eyes narrowed. "Excellent," she stated icily, her tone growing colder. "Perhaps you need more time to acclimate." As the ceremony came to an end, James staggered back, returning to his quarters with his head spinning from the nectar and the near miss. With visions of the dance and Azora's piercing gaze racing through his mind, he sank upon the bed of living moss. A gentle tap awoke him from his daze. Carrie entered the space stealthily, her face marked with worry. She knelt alongside him and asked, "Are you all right?" "I saw what happened during the ritual." James pushed himself up with a sigh. "There, I almost lost myself. This honey is stronger than I had anticipated." Carrie gave a somber nod. "For this reason, we must move quickly. I discovered evidence of your trip that went missing. However, it's risky. Is it really your want to know?" James stared back at her, bracing himself.